there seems to be a little bit of a prejudice towards alcohol to some extent, because you talk about Priestley and Ben Franklin and all those guys in their coffee houses,
right,
and how somehow they're smarter because they stopped drinking booze.
Right. Yeah, there's this little pro-coffee theme in the book, which is, I think, appropriate in Seattle. Frankly, I mean, come on, what am I doing here? But yeah, it's not an accident that you know, before coffee and tea came to England in the kind of early part of the 18th century, the daytime drug of choice for both the masses and the elites was alcohol, because the water wasn't really safe to drink. So you had an entire culture that was ostensibly drunk all day for health reasons. And so the fact that the Enlightenment happens right as the culture switches basically from a depressant to a stimulant is truly not an accident. I think it's a related factor in that story. And I'm hoping to get some kind of marketing deal with Starbucks.
Well, keeping on the alcohol theme, just because it is a favorite of mine, and screw the Enlightenment, this drink, the Warren Collins, would not be possible to some extent without Joseph Priestley.
That's right.
The star and subject of this book. I was very excited about that. He makes my Tom Collins version possible.
That's right.
How is that?
He invented soda water. And Priestley called it his kind of happiest discovery, and it's a classic Priestley story on a couple of levels. He moved into this kind of temporary residence, and it happened to abut a brewery. And so, ever kind of inquisitive, he walks over to the brewery to kind of inspect what's going on there, and he sees these giant vats of beer brewing, and he sees this kind of little haze coming off of the beer. And so he thinks, well, that would be a good place to do science experiments. And so he goes to the proprietors of the brewery, which is just a beautiful image, this kind of wacky next-door neighbor minister coming over saying, could I set up a little lab here? Would you mind having? And so he discovers that if you pour water back and forth over this beer, that it creates this delightful fizzy beverage.
Something I enjoy about Joseph Priestley, who is the subject of the invention of air, is that despite all the great ideas he had, he did screw up a lot.
Right.
Because the thing on the soda water on the ship's not a good idea, but he also had some other really classic blunders.
The thing he's most famous for is that he was allegedly the first guy to isolate or discover oxygen for the first time. But in fact, he wasn't the first person to do it, and when he did it, he, as you said very eloquently, he kind of effed it up, which was that he was under the sway of this theory about, in a sense, why things burn, which was called the phlogiston theory, and he believed that there was something kind of fundamentally combustible in certain materials that when they burned, they kind of released it into the air. And so when he isolated oxygen, he decided to call it deflustigated air, right, which didn't really take off, weirdly, as a term. One of the big themes of this book is this question of what happens when you have major kind of intellectual turning points and paradigm shifts, when society kind of invents a new way of thinking about the world. How does it happen? Why does it happen? And I think one of the things that we see again and again is that you need people like Priestley who were good at going in and kind of laying the gunpowder under the existing structure and kind of blowing it up. And then you need people who are good at then sifting through the rubble and building something new.